The transport ship landed with a heavy thud on the Academy's main platform. Steam hissed from its engines as hundreds of new cadets began filing out onto the metal walkway. The morning sun cast long shadows across the massive military complex. That would be their home for the next 4 years. Hannah Kim stepped off the ship carrying a small travel bag and nothing else visible. She was smaller than most humans her age, with short black hair and quiet dark eyes that seemed to take in everything around her. What made other passengers stare was not her size or appearance, but the strange creature that sat perfectly still on her right shoulder. The being looked like a piece of living crystal about the size of a house cat. Its body was made of clear, blue material that caught the sunlight and threw it back in tiny rainbows. Every few seconds, soft blue light would pulse through its form like a slow heartbeat. The creature had no visible eyes, mouth, or limbs, yet it somehow managed to stay balanced on Hannah's shoulder as she walked. "Look at that," whispered a tall cadet with green scaly skin. The human brought her pet rock to military school. His friend, a massive creature covered in brown fur, laughed loudly. Maybe she thinks it will fight for her when the real training starts. More cadets began to notice Hannah and her companion as they moved through the crowd. Some pointed and whispered. Others just stared with confusion or amusement. A group of human cadets near the platform entrance saw her approaching and quickly moved away, clearly embarrassed to be associated with someone so strange. Hannah kept walking forward, her face showing no emotion. The crystal being on her shoulder pulsed with slightly dimmer light, as if it could sense the negative attention they were receiving. "Welcome to Galactic Military Academy," announced a voice over the loudspeakers. "All new cadets report to Assembly Hall 1 for orientation. Follow the blue markers on the ground." The crowd began moving in the same direction, following glowing blue lines painted on the walkway. Hannah found herself swept along with the others. Still carrying her small bag and her unusual companion, Assembly Hall 1 was enormous, with seats for over 2,000 beings from dozens of different species. The ceiling stretched high above them, covered with holographic displays showing images of famous battles and military heroes from across the galaxy. Hannah found an empty seat near the back, hoping to avoid more attention. A young human cadet slid into the seat next to her. He had messy brown hair and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. "Hi," he said softly. "I'm June Park, engineering track." "Hannah Kim," she replied, grateful that someone was willing to sit near her. "Combat tactics?" June looked at the crystal creature with curious interest rather than mockery. "What's your friend's name?" "Vex," Hannah said. The crystal being pulsed once with brighter light as if responding to its name. Before June could ask more questions, the lights dimmed and a massive figure walked onto the stage. General Thoric was a reptilian being nearly 3 meters tall, with dark green scales and yellow eyes that seemed to see everything at once. His voice boomed across the hall without need for amplification. "Cadets," he began. "You have come here from across the galaxy. Some of you are strong, some are fast, some are intelligent. But strength, speed, and intelligence mean nothing without discipline, courage, and the ability to work as part of a team." The general's gaze swept across the assembled cadets. "Over the next 4 years, you will be tested in ways you cannot imagine. Many of you will fail, some will quit, others will be dismissed for lack of ability or commitment. Only the best will graduate to serve in the Galactic Defense Force." Hannah listened carefully to every word, but she could feel other cadets continuing to stare at her, and Vex. Whispered conversations drifted from the seats around them. "Is that thing even alive? Why did they let her bring it here? Humans are so weird about their pets." After the assembly, cadets were divided into groups for dormitory assignments and scheduled distribution. Hannah found herself standing in line behind 2 avian cadets whose feathers rustled with amusement as they looked back at her. "Combat tactics," one of them chirped to the other. "With that tiny frame. And she's bringing her crystal collection to help her fight." The other avian made clicking sounds that Hannah recognized as laughter. "Maybe it shoots laser beams," it said MOCKINGLY when Hannah reached the front of the line. A tired-looking human officer handed her a datapad and room assignment. "Dormitory Block C, room 247, he said without looking up. Then his eyes caught sight of Vex and his expression changed. "What is that thing?" "My partner," Hannah said simply. The officer frowned and made a note on his own pad. "Report to Commander. Lee's office after you settle in. Third floor, administrative wing." Hannah's dormitory room was small but functional, with 2 beds, 2 desks, and a shared washroom. Her roommate had not yet arrived, so she unpacked her few belongings in silence. Vex moved from her shoulder to one of the desks, where it sat motionless but continued pulsing with gentle blue light. "I know this is hard," Hannah whispered to the crystal being. "But we knew it would be like this at first." Vex's light pulsed once, brighter than before. To anyone watching, it would look like a simple reaction to sound or movement. Only Hannah could hear the warm, wordless voice that spoke directly into her mind, offering comfort and reassurance. An hour later, Hannah stood outside Commander Lee's office. The nameplate on the door read, "Commander Yuki Lee, Cadet Affairs." She knocked twice and waited. "Enter," came a sharp voice from inside. Commander Lee was a stern-faced human woman in her 40s, with graying hair pulled back in a tight bun. Her uniform was perfectly pressed, and her desk was organized with military precision. She looked up from her paperwork as Hannah entered, and her eyes immediately focused on Vex. "Cadet Kim," she said, "I've received several reports about your companion. The Galactic Military Academy is a serious institution for training future military officers. It is not a place for pets, mascots, or emotional support animals." "Vex is not a pet, Commander," Hannah replied respectfully. "Vex is my partner." Commander Lee's expression hardened. "I don't care what you call it, Cadet. That creature needs to be removed from Academy grounds immediately. There are civilian housing facilities nearby where it can be properly cared for while you complete your training." Hannah stood straighter. "With respect, Commander, I cannot do that. Vex and I are bonded. We work together." "Work together," Commander Lee repeated with clear skepticism. "Cadet Kim, I've seen your test scores. Your physical abilities are below average for human females your age. Your academic records are good but not exceptional. What exactly do you think you and your pet rock are going to contribute to this academy?" The words stung, but Hannah kept her voice steady. "I believe we can learn and serve alongside the other cadets, Commander. I'm willing to prove our worth through performance, not appearance." Commander Lee leaned back in her chair, studying Hannah with calculating eyes. "Very well, Cadet Kim. You have 1 month to demonstrate that you belong here. If your performance is unsatisfactory, both you and your companion will be dismissed. Is that understood?" "Yes, Commander. Dismissed." Hannah left the office with Vex still balanced on her shoulder. As they walked back toward the dormitory, she could feel the weight of curious and hostile stares from every direction. Other cadets moved out of their way, some with obvious disgust, others with barely contained laughter. That evening in the mess hall, Hannah sat alone at a corner table with her meal and Vex beside her tray. June Park appeared with his own food and sat down across from her without asking permission. "Rough first day," he said simply. Hannah nodded. "It's going to get worse before it gets better." June glanced around at the other cadets, many of whom were still pointing and whispering in their direction. "Why do you stay with Vex if it makes things so difficult?" Hannah looked at the crystal being whose light had dimmed throughout the day. As the hostility around them increased, she reached out and gently touched its smooth surface. Immediately, Vex's light brightened, and Hannah felt the wordless communication that connected their minds. "Because loyalty means something," she said quietly. "And because together we're stronger than either of us could ever be alone." She didn't mention that Vex was far more than anyone realized. She didn't explain the incredible intelligence that lived within that crystal form, or the way their minds could link to process information at impossible speeds. Those secrets would have to wait for the right moment. For now, it was enough to endure the mockery and prove that appearances could be deceiving. The galaxy was about to learn what real partnership looked like, even if the lesson came at great cost to both of them. 3 months had passed since Hannah's first day at the academy. The mockery had not stopped. If anything, it had grown worse as other cadets saw her struggle with individual combat exercises. Every morning brought new whispers and cruel jokes about the small human girl and her useless crystal pet. In hand-to-hand combat class, Hannah was easily defeated by opponents twice her size and 3 times her strength. During weapons training, her shots were accurate but slow compared to cadets with enhanced reflexes. Physical fitness tests showed her at the bottom of nearly every category. The only area where she excelled was tactical theory, but even that success was dismissed by others as book learning with no real-world value. Vex had grown dimmer over the weeks. The constant negativity seemed to affect the crystal being deeply. It rarely pulsed with bright light anymore, and Hannah could feel its sadness through their mental connection. She tried to offer comfort, but she was struggling too. Team assignments. For advanced tactical simulations, announced Commander Lee during morning assembly. These exercises will test your ability to work together under pressure. Failure to cooperate effectively will result in immediate dismissal from the program. Hannah felt her stomach drop as the assignments were read aloud. She found herself placed on Team 7 with 3 other cadets who had made their dislike of her very clear over the past months. The team leader was Nari Song, an ambitious human cadet from a military family. Nari was everything Hannah was not. Tall, strong, confident, and popular with both instructors and fellow students. She had made it clear that she considered Hannah an embarrassment to their species. The second team member was Toon, a massive Gorlick warrior standing nearly 3 meters tall. His species was known for incredible strength and thick armored skin that could stop most small arms fire. Toon rarely spoke, but when he did, it was usually to complain about working with weak teammates. The third member was Zira, an avian scout with bright blue feathers and sharp yellow eyes. Her species could fly at high speeds and had vision that could spot targets from kilometers away. Zira made no secret of her belief that mammals were inferior to avians in every way that mattered. Team 7, report to Simulation Bay 5, came. The announcement: your mission briefing begins in 10 minutes. The 4 cadets gathered around a holographic display that showed a detailed map of an urban environment. Captain Minho Chung, a battle-scarred human veteran, stood beside the projector, with his arms crossed. Your objective is simple, Captain Chung began. Enemy forces have taken control of a communications hub in the center of this city. You must infiltrate the building, eliminate hostile contacts, and secure the facility. You have 2 hours to complete the mission. Nari stepped forward immediately. I'll take command of this operation, she announced without consulting the others. Toon, you'll provide heavy assault capability. Zero will handle reconnaissance and sniper support. Kim. She looked at Hannah with obvious distaste. Try to stay out of the way and don't get us all killed. Hannah wanted to speak up, to share the tactical insights she had been developing while studying their target. Vex had been analyzing the holographic map, identifying weak points in the enemy's defensive position and suggesting approach routes that would minimize casualties. But Nari's dismissive tone made it clear that input was not welcome. Any questions? Captain Chang asked. Hannah raised her hand slowly. I've noticed some patterns in the enemy placement that might— No questions, Nari interrupted sharply. We have a solid plan. Let's get this done. Captain Chang's eyes lingered on Hannah for a moment, but he said nothing. Simulation begins in 60 seconds. Good luck. The team entered the simulation chamber, a massive room that used advanced holographic technology to create completely realistic environments. Within moments, they found themselves standing on a city street surrounded by damaged buildings and the sound of distant gunfire. Nari immediately began implementing her plan, which focused on a direct frontal assault supported by Toon's heavy weapons and Zera's aerial reconnaissance. She ordered Hannah to follow behind and watch for threats from the rear. The strategy failed almost immediately. Zera's aerial approach triggered concealed anti-aircraft systems that nearly shot her down. Toon's frontal assault walked straight into a kill zone where crossfire from multiple positions pinned him down behind inadequate cover. Within minutes, both were reporting heavy damage to their simulated armor and weapon systems. "This isn't working," Toon growled over the communication system. "They knew we were coming." "Impossible," Nari replied, but her voice carried less confidence than before. Intelligence reports showed only light resistance. Hana crouched behind a destroyed vehicle with Vex glowing softly on her shoulder. Through their mental link, she could see the tactical situation with perfect clarity. The enemy had anticipated exactly the kind of direct assault that Nari had ordered. Their defensive positions were designed to channel attackers into predetermined kill zones. "Nari," Hana said over the comm, "if we approach from the southwest service tunnel, we can bypass their main defensive line and—" "Shut up, Kim," Nari snapped. "I'm trying to think," but thinking was not enough. The simulation continued to deteriorate as enemy forces began a coordinated counterattack. Zero was forced to crash land with damaged wings. Toon's position became completely untenable as enemy. Reinforcements arrived. Within another 10 minutes, all three of Hana's teammates had been marked as casualties by the simulation system. Only Hana remained active, crouched in her hiding spot while enemy soldiers searched the area around her. The mission was a complete failure. "Exercise terminated," came Captain Chang's voice. "Team 7 report to debriefing immediately." The simulation environment faded away, leaving the 4 cadets standing in the empty chamber. Nari's face was red with anger and embarrassment. Toon looked furious. Zira's feathers were ruffled with agitation. "That was pathetic," Nari said, turning to glare at Hana. "Your useless suggestions confused our coordination and got everyone killed." "I never got a chance to explain my suggestions," Hana replied quietly, "because they were stupid." Nari shot back. "Service tunnels? That's beginner-level thinking. Real military operations require bold action, not hiding in sewers." Captain Chang was waiting for them in the debriefing room, reviewing footage from their disastrous exercise. His expression was grim as they filed in and took their seats. "That was one of the worst tactical performances I've seen in 15 years. Of instruction," he began bluntly. "Team coordination was non-existent. Leadership was inflexible. Intelligence gathering was inadequate. And most importantly, you ignored available resources that might have changed the outcome." His eyes focused on Nari. "Cadet Song, explain your decision-making process." Nari straightened in her chair. "Sir, I implemented a standard assault protocol based on our team's strengths. Heavy firepower, aerial reconnaissance, and rapid execution. The plan was sound." "The plan was predictable," Captain Chang corrected. "The enemy anticipated exactly that approach because it's what 90% of cadet teams attempt. Did you consider alternative strategies?" "Sir, I evaluated our capabilities and chose the most effective approach." Captain Chang turned to Hana. "Cadet Kim, you attempted to make several suggestions during the exercise. What were you trying to communicate?" Hana glanced nervously at her teammates, all of whom were glaring at her. "Sir, Vex and I had identified weaknesses in the enemy's defensive perimeter. The service tunnel approach would have allowed us to reach the building's foundation level, where their sensors had limited coverage. From there, we could have accessed the communication hub through maintenance shafts without triggering their main defensive systems." "Interesting," Captain Chang said. "And you based this assessment on what information?" "Pattern analysis of their guard rotations and weapon placements, sir. Vex helped me process the tactical data to identify the gaps in their coverage." The room fell silent. Toon shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Zira's head tilted with curiosity. Nari's expression showed a mixture of surprise and skepticism. "Vex helped you," Captain Chang repeated slowly. "Your companion there contributed to tactical analysis?" "Yes, sir." Captain Chang studied the crystal being, which had remained motionless on Hana's shoulder throughout the conversation. "I see, and this analysis indicated that Cadet Song's approach would fail?" "Not fail, sir. But it would result in heavy casualties and likely mission failure due to the defensive preparations we observed." For a long moment, Captain Chang said nothing. Then he stood and walked to the holographic projector, calling up the map of their target area. "Show me," he said simply. Hana stood and approached the display. Vex's light began to pulse more brightly as she pointed to various locations. On the map, the enemy placed automated weapons here, here, and here, she said, indicating positions that formed interlocking fields of fire. Their patrol routes created a funnel effect that would channel any direct assault into this kill zone. But the service infrastructure was lightly monitored, probably because they assumed no one would use maintenance tunnels for a military operation. As she spoke, Vex's light grew brighter still, and somehow the holographic display began highlighting the exact positions and patrol routes that Hana described. The other cadets stared in amazement as the crystal being seemed to interface directly with the Academy's computer systems. "Remarkable," Captain Chung said quietly. "This level of tactical analysis would be impressive from a senior officer, let alone a first-year cadet." He turned to face the team. "Your next exercise is scheduled for tomorrow morning. Team 7 will attempt the same mission using Cadet Kim's suggested approach. Cadet Song, you will follow her tactical recommendations exactly. Is that understood?" Nari's jaw clenched, but she nodded. "Yes, sir. Dismissed." As they left the debriefing room, the dynamic between the team members had shifted noticeably. Toon looked at Hana with something approaching respect. Zira kept glancing at Vex with scientific curiosity. Even Neri seemed less hostile, though she remained defensive about her leadership failure. "That thing really can think," Zira said as they walked down the corridor. "Vex is not a thing," Hana replied firmly. "Vex is my partner." "Whatever," Nari muttered. "Just don't expect this to change anything permanently. One lucky guess doesn't make you a tactical genius." But as they parted ways, Hana noticed that the whispers in the corridors had changed. Instead of mockery, she heard curiosity. Other cadets who had dismissed her completely were now watching with interest. The crystal being on her shoulder pulsed with slightly brighter light, as if sensing the shift in attitude around them. Change was coming, slowly but surely. Tomorrow's exercise would be their chance to prove that partnership and understanding could triumph over individual strength and conventional thinking. The transport shuttle shook violently as it entered the atmosphere of Training Moon Kappa through the small windows. Hana could see the scarred surface below, a wasteland of craters, twisted metal, and ancient battlefields where cadets had trained for decades. This was where midterm evaluations took place, and failure meant immediate expulsion from the academy. "Listen up," shouted Instructor Davis over the engine noise. "You have 72 hours to complete your objectives and reach the extraction point. Live ammunition, real explosives, and fully operational defense systems. This is not a simulation. Injuries are possible. Deaths have occurred in the past." The other cadets in the shuttle looked nervous. Even the massive alien warriors seemed uncomfortable with the instructor's warnings. Hana felt Vex pulse with dim light on her shoulder, reflecting her own anxiety about what lay ahead. "Team assignments remain the same as your previous exercises," Davis continued. "Team 7, Song, Kim, Toon, and Zira, you will be dropped in Grid Section Alpha 7. Your target is the abandoned communications facility in the center of the training zone. Capture and hold for 12 hours minimum." Nari straightened in her seat, trying to project confidence she clearly did not feel. Since their failed simulation 3 days earlier, she had been quieter and less dismissive of Hana's input. The successful rerun of their mission using Hana's tactical plan had shaken her certainty about leadership and strategy. The shuttle touched down with a heavy thud, and the rear door opened to reveal a bleak landscape of rocky ground and rusted metal structures. Ancient war machines from forgotten conflicts lay scattered across the terrain like the bones of mechanical beasts. "Good luck," Davis called as the teams filed out. "Remember, the defense systems are automated and programmed to treat you as hostile targets. They will not hesitate to kill you if you make mistakes." Team 7 gathered their equipment and moved away from the landing zone as quickly as possible. Each cadet carried survival gear, basic weapons, and communication devices that would only work at close range. They were truly on their own until extraction time. "All right," Nari said, shouldering her pack. "We stick to the plan we discussed. Move carefully, watch for patrol drones, and avoid the main approach routes. It was a significant change from her previous attitude. She was actually listening to Hannah's tactical suggestions now, even if she did not fully understand how a small human and her crystal companion could analyze battlefield conditions so effectively. They had been walking for less than 2 hours when disaster struck. Toon was in the lead, using his natural armor and strength to clear a path through the debris. Field. Zira flew overhead in short hops, scouting for threats. Hannah and Nari followed behind, with Vex constantly scanning their surroundings through senses that no one else fully understood. The attack came without warning. Hunter-killer. Drones erupted from concealed positions in the wreckage around them. These were not training robots. They were fully armed combat machines left over from real wars, reprogrammed to test cadet survival skills. Their plasma cannons opened fire immediately. "Take cover!" Nari screamed, diving behind a chunk of broken concrete. Toon roared in pain as plasma bolts struck his thick hide, burning through even his natural armor. He stumbled and fell behind an overturned vehicle, green blood seeping from multiple wounds. Zira tried to gain altitude for an escape, but a drone's targeting system tracked her flight path perfectly. Energy beams clipped her left wing, sending her crashing to the ground with a cry of agony. Within minutes, 2 of their 4 team members were seriously injured and combat ineffective. The drones continued their methodical advance, their sensors scanning for any sign of movement from their remaining targets. Hannah pressed herself against a metal wall with Vex glowing frantically on her shoulder. Through their mental link, she could feel the crystal being's alarm and determination. This was exactly the kind of situation they had trained for together in secret, but the stakes were higher than ever before. "We need to retreat," Nari whispered, from her position 10 meters away. "Call for emergency evacuation." "They won't come for 72 hours unless someone dies," Hannah replied. "And Toon and Zira need medical attention now." "Then what do you suggest? We can't fight those things with small arms." Hannah closed her eyes and linked her consciousness fully with Vex's crystalline intelligence. Together, they began analyzing the tactical situation with inhuman speed and precision. The drone's movement patterns, weapon capabilities, sensor limitations, and programming constraints all became clear in their shared awareness. "I have an idea," Hannah said. "But you have to trust me completely." Nari looked across the gap between their hiding spots. The human girl who had been mocked and dismissed for months was now their only hope of survival. "What do you need?" "Get Toon and Zira to that bunker entrance over there." Hannah pointed to a partially collapsed structure about 50 meters away. "I'm going to reprogram some of these drones to fight each other instead of hunting us." That's impossible," Nari said. "Those systems are military-grade encrypted." Vex's light blazed brighter than Nari had ever seen it, and somehow she knew that impossible was not the right word to use anymore. "Give me 10 minutes, Hannah said. "When you see the drones start shooting at each other, move fast. Don't stop for anything." What happened next defied everything Nari thought she knew about technology and tactical warfare. Hannah sprinted from cover with Vex blazing like a blue star on her shoulder. Instead of running away from the drones, she ran directly toward them. Plasma bolts seared the air around her, but somehow none of them found their target. She moved with impossible precision, as if she could predict exactly where each shot would go before the drones fired. When she reached the first machine, something extraordinary occurred. Vex's crystalline form began resonating with electromagnetic frequencies that interfaced directly with the drone's control systems. The crystal being was not just analyzing the machines, it was talking to them in their own electronic language. The first drone stopped firing and began turning toward its mechanical companions. Then the second drone changed targets as well. Within moments, all 6 hunter-killers were engaged in a furious battle with each other, their programming confused by Vex's electronic manipulation. "Now!" Hannah shouted. "Move!" Nari ran to Toon's position and helped the massive warrior to his feet. Despite his injuries, he was able to walk with support. She then grabbed Zira, cradling the injured avian carefully to avoid damaging her wing. Further, the three of them made it to the bunker entrance just as the drone battle reached its climax. Explosions lit up the wasteland as the confused machines destroyed each other with their own weapons. When the smoke cleared, only scattered pieces of metal remained. Hana arrived at the bunker moments later, with Vex still glowing but noticeably dimmer from the effort of reprogramming 6 military drones simultaneously. "How?" was all Nari could manage to say. "Vex can interface with electronic systems," Hana explained simply. "We used their own targeting protocols against them by convincing each drone that the others were enemy targets." Toon looked up from his position against the bunker wall. "You saved our lives," he said with genuine gratitude. "All of our lives." Zira nodded weakly from where she sat nursing her damaged wing. "I was wrong about you, about both of you." Inside the bunker, they found medical supplies and shelter from the harsh environment outside. As Hana tended to her teammates' injuries, the dynamic between them shifted completely. The mockery and dismissal were gone, replaced by respect and curiosity. "What exactly is Vex?" Zira asked as Hana applied healing gel to the avian's wing. "A luminous collective being," Hana replied. "They're an ancient species that exists as pure thought within crystalline matrices. Vex chose to bond with me 3 years ago." "Chose you for what?" Hana looked at the crystal being whose light pulsed gently with contentment. "Partnership. Vex processes information faster than any computer, but needs someone with intuition and creativity to guide that analysis. Together we can see tactical solutions that neither of us could find alone." Nari shook her head in amazement. "The academy instructors don't know about this, do they?" "Some suspect," Hana said. "But most people see what they expect to see, a small human girl with a pet rock." "Not anymore," Toon rumbled from his resting place. "After today, things will be different." As night fell over the training moon, Team 7 took shelter in their bunker and planned their approach to the communications facility. But now it was truly a team effort, with all 4 members contributing their unique abilities to a strategy guided by Hana and Vex's analytical partnership. For the first time since arriving at the academy, Hana felt like she belonged somewhere. The test of fire had forged bonds between teammates who had started as strangers and enemies. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but they would face them together, outside. The ancient battlefields of Training Moon Kappa lay silent under alien stars. The real test was just beginning, but Team 7 had learned something valuable about trust, loyalty, and the power of looking beyond appearances to find the truth underneath. Word spread quickly through the academy when Team 7 returned from Training Moon Kappa. Their successful completion of the survival exercise, combined with reports of Hana's extraordinary tactical display, created ripples of curiosity and amazement throughout the cadet population. Commander Lee stood in her office reviewing the mission recordings for the 3rd time. The footage showed impossible coordination between a human cadet and her crystalline companion, electronic warfare capabilities that surpassed senior officers, and tactical analysis that had saved 4 lives under extreme pressure. "Remarkable," she murmured, watching Hana sprint toward armed combat drones while Vex blazed with light on her shoulder. "Absolutely remarkable." A knock on her door interrupted her thoughts. "Enter," she called. General Thoric stepped into the office, his massive, reptilian frame filling the doorway. The academy commandant rarely visited individual instructors, which made his presence both surprising and significant. "Commander Lee," he said in his deep, rumbling voice. "I assume you have been reviewing the Kappa mission footage." "Yes, sir." "Multiple times." "I'm still trying to understand exactly what happened out there." General Thoric moved to stand beside her desk, his yellow eyes focused on the frozen image of Hana and Vex displayed on the monitor. "What happened, Commander, is that we have been observing something unprecedented in galactic military history." He gestured toward the screen. "The bond between human intuition and luminous processing power represents a new form of tactical warfare. Our xenobiology experts have been studying the footage, and they believe we are witnessing the first successful human-luminous combat partnership ever recorded." Commander Lee looked up at the general with surprise. "You knew what Vex was?" I suspected. From the beginning, Thoric replied. Luminous collective beings rarely leave their homeworlds, and when they do, it is always for a specific purpose. When Cadet Kim arrived with her companion, I ordered discreet monitoring to determine their capabilities. And now? Now we must decide how to proceed. This partnership could revolutionize military tactics across the galaxy, but only if it is properly developed and protected. The conversation was interrupted by another knock. This time it was Captain Chang, still wearing his field uniform after returning from the training moon evaluation. General Commander, he said, saluting both officers, I have additional reports on Team 7's performance that you should hear directly. Proceed, Captain. Chang activated his own datapad and pulled up tactical assessments from the mission. Cadet Kim's strategic analysis was flawless throughout the exercise. She identified enemy positions, predicted patrol patterns, and developed countermeasures that saved her entire team from certain elimination. He paused, clearly struggling to find adequate words for what he had witnessed. Sir, I have been training cadets for 15 years. I have never seen anything comparable to the tactical awareness displayed by Kim and her companion. They processed battlefield information faster than our computer systems and developed solutions that senior officers would struggle to conceive. General Thoric nodded slowly. Your recommendation, Captain? Advanced tactical training immediately. Specialized instruction in electronic warfare and battlefield analysis. And most importantly, protection from those who might try to exploit or separate this partnership. After the officers finished their meeting, Hana found herself summoned to General Thorac's private office. She entered nervously, with Vex glowing softly on her shoulder. Unsure what to expect from the Academy's highest-ranking official, the General's office was larger than any room Hana had seen at the Academy, with walls covered in military decorations and battle honors from dozens of worlds. Thoric himself sat behind a massive desk that seemed dwarfed by his enormous reptilian frame. Cadet Kim, he began without preamble. Your performance on Kappa has attracted considerable attention from Academy leadership. Yes, sir. Tell me about your partnership with Vex. How long have you been bonded? Hana glanced at the crystal being, whose light pulsed once with encouragement. 3 years, sir. Vex chose me when I was 16, living on a mining colony near the Outer Rim. Chose you for what purpose? Partnership, sir. Vex's people can process vast amounts of information, but they need someone with creativity and intuition to guide that analysis toward practical solutions. Together we can see patterns and possibilities that neither of us could identify alone. General Thoric leaned forward, his yellow eyes studying both Hana and her companion intently. And you believe this partnership has military applications? Yes, sir. Vex can analyze battlefield conditions, predict enemy movements, and identify tactical opportunities faster than any computer system. But computers cannot make the intuitive leaps that lead to truly innovative strategies. Demonstrate, the general said simply. He activated a holographic display showing a complex battle scenario with multiple enemy positions, friendly forces, and geographical obstacles. This is a real engagement from the border wars. 3 human divisions were pinned down by superior enemy forces in this valley. How would you break the stalemate? Hana closed her eyes and linked her consciousness with Vex's crystalline intelligence. Together they analyzed the terrain, troop positions, supply lines, and tactical options available to the human commanders. The solution came to them within seconds. The enemy positioned their forces to control the valley exits, Hana said, opening her eyes. But they made 2 critical assumptions: that human forces would try to break out directly, and that the underground river system was impassable. She pointed to seemingly insignificant features on the holographic map. A small force could use these maintenance tunnels from the old mining operation to reach the river access points. From there, they could follow the underground waterway to emerge behind enemy lines at these 3 locations. As she spoke, Vex's light grew brighter and somehow interfaced with the holographic system, highlighting the exact route and tactical positions she described. Simultaneous attacks from these positions would collapse the enemy's defensive perimeter from within, allowing the main force to break out with minimal casualties. General Thorax stared at the display for a long moment. "That is precisely the strategy that General Martinez used to win that engagement," he said quietly. "It took his staff 3 days of analysis to develop that plan. You conceived it in under a minute. Vex and I conceived it together, sir. Indeed." The general stood and walked to the window overlooking the academy grounds. "Cadet Kim, your partnership represents something extraordinary, but with that comes both opportunity and danger, sir. There are those who would seek to exploit what you and Vex can accomplish. Military contractors who would want to study and replicate your bond. Politicians who would use your abilities for personal gain. Even well-meaning officers who might separate you in misguided attempts to maximize your individual potential." Hannah felt a chill of fear. "What does that mean for us, sir?" "It means you will receive advanced training and protection, but also additional scrutiny. Your fellow cadets will look at you differently now. Some with respect, others with envy or suspicion." As if to prove his point, Hannah found the atmosphere completely changed when she left the general's office. Cadets who had mocked her for months now stopped to stare with mixture of awe and uncertainty. Conversations quieted when she passed, and she could feel the weight of dozens of eyes following her movements. In the mess hall, June waved her over to his table with obvious excitement. "Hannah, everyone's talking about what happened on Kappa. Is it true that you reprogrammed 6 combat drones simultaneously?" Before she could answer, other cadets began gathering around their table. Even species that had previously ignored all humans now looked at her with curious interest. "How does it work?" asked the tall Centaurian with multiple arms. "The mind link. With your crystal companion? Can you teach others to do what you do?" inquired an insectoid Vrix cadet. "Is it true that you can predict enemy movements before they happen?" The questions came faster than Hannah could answer them, and she began to feel overwhelmed by the sudden attention. Vex's light dimmed with her discomfort, and she realized that fame might be just as challenging as mockery had been. Nari appeared at her shoulder, gently but firmly dispersing the crowd. "Give her some space," she said with authority that surprised. "Hannah, she just got back from a dangerous mission." When the other cadets reluctantly moved away, Nari sat down across from Hannah with an expression of genuine respect. "I owe you an apology," she said quietly. "A real one, not just for the mission, but for months of treating you badly." "You don't need to—" "Yes, I do." Nari's voice was firm. "I was wrong about you, about Vex, about everything. You saved our lives. Out there, and more than that, you showed me what real leadership looks like." Toon and Zira joined them, both moving carefully due to their injuries from the training moon. The massive Gorlick warrior nodded respectfully to Hannah before speaking. "My people value strength above all else," he said in his deep voice. "But you have shown me that there are different kinds of strength. The strength to endure mockery without bitterness. The strength to offer help to those who have treated you poorly. The strength to risk your life for teammates who did not deserve such loyalty." Zira's damaged wing was wrapped in medical bandaging, but her sharp eyes were bright with intelligence and gratitude. "In my culture, we believe that true sight comes from seeing beyond the obvious. You and Vex see things that others miss entirely. That is a gift that should be honored, not ridiculed." As they talked, Hannah realized that everything had changed. The isolation and mockery were ending, but new challenges were beginning. She had proven herself capable of extraordinary things, which meant that extraordinary things would be expected of her in return. Vex pulsed once with warm light, and through their mental connection, she felt the crystal being's contentment and determination. They had found their place at the academy, but this was only the beginning of their journey together. The girl and her companion had shown what they could accomplish when given the chance. Now the galaxy would learn what loyalty and partnership could achieve when properly supported and challenged. Outside the mess hall windows, the Academy's training facilities buzzed with activity as new exercises were designed specifically to test and develop human-luminous tactical cooperation. The future was full of possibilities that neither species could have imagined alone. 6 months had passed since the Kappa mission, and Hana's life at the academy had transformed completely. No longer the ridiculed outcast, she now found herself at the center of advanced tactical training programs designed specifically around human luminous partnerships. Other cadets sought her advice on complex strategic problems, and instructors regularly called upon her and Vex to demonstrate analytical techniques. The morning of final evaluations began like any other. Hana woke early in her dormitory room, now shared with Zira, who had requested the transfer after their bonding experience on the training moon. The avian cadet had become one of Hana's closest friends, offering aerial reconnaissance support that complemented the tactical insights provided by Vex's electronic analysis. "Big day today," Zira said, preening her fully healed wings with obvious excitement. The war games start at dawn. 3 academy campuses, over 5,000 cadets, the largest military simulation in galactic history. Hana nodded, checking her equipment one final time. The final evaluation would determine not just graduation rankings, but assignment preferences for their future military careers. After months of specialized training, she and Vex were expected to perform at levels that would have been impossible when they first arrived. "Are you nervous?" Zira asked. Before Hana could answer, emergency sirens began wailing throughout the academy complex. Both cadets froze as the distinctive pattern echoed through their dormitory, 3 long blasts followed by 2 short ones. It was a sound they had heard only in drills. "Real attack warning." "This is not a drill," came General Thorak's voice over the academy communication system. "All cadets report to designated assembly areas immediately. Academy is under direct military threat. Repeat, this is not a drill." Hana and Zira grabbed their gear and rushed toward the main assembly hall along with hundreds of other confused and frightened cadets. Through the corridor windows, they could see military shuttles landing on the academy grounds and officers running between buildings with urgent purpose. In the assembly hall, General Thorak stood on the main platform with several senior officers, all wearing grim expressions that sent chills through the gathered cadets. Behind them, holographic displays showed tactical information that made Hana's blood run cold. "Cadets," the general began, his deep voice carrying easily through the enormous space. "Long-range sensors have detected a massive enemy fleet approaching this system. The force is commanded by Warlord Grix, leading a coalition of outcast species, in open rebellion against the Galactic Alliance." Murmurs of shock and fear rippled through the assembled students. This was supposed to be a training facility, far from any combat zones or political conflicts. "Grix's fleet will arrive in approximately 4 hours, Thorak continued. "Our defensive installations are not designed to withstand an assault of this magnitude. Emergency evacuation protocols are being implemented immediately." The relief that followed this announcement was short-lived. "However," the general said, raising his voice as new alarms began sounding, "long-range reconnaissance indicates that Grix has positioned additional forces to intercept evacuation routes. Our transport capacity is limited, and not all cadets can be evacuated before the enemy arrives." The hall fell into stunned silence as the implications became clear. "Therefore, I am activating emergency military protocols. All 4th-year cadets are hereby granted temporary officer commissions. All cadets 3rd year and above will remain to defend this academy until Alliance reinforcements arrive in approximately 72 hours. Captain Chang stepped forward with updated tactical displays. "Enemy force consists of approximately 300 ships, including 12 heavy battlecruisers and over 50 assault transports. They clearly intend to use this academy as a base for striking deeper into Alliance territory." Hana felt Vex pulse with alarmed energy on her shoulder as the crystal being processed, the tactical information being displayed. Through their mental link, she could sense Vex analyzing fleet compositions, attack vectors, and defensive possibilities with superhuman speed. What she sensed through that analysis made her stomach clench with fear. This was not just an attack on the academy. Grix had positioned his forces to strike at the heart of Alliance space, using the academy assault as a distraction while his main battle groups moved toward the core worlds. If he succeeded, billions of lives would be at risk. Cadet assignments will be distributed immediately, General Thorak announced. Senior cadets will take command positions. Underclassmen will serve in support roles. Remember your training. Trust your teammates and honor the academy. As cadets began filing out to receive their assignments, June appeared at Hana's side, his usually cheerful face pale with worry. "This is really happening," he said quietly. "We're going to fight in a real battle." "It looks that way," Hana replied, though her mind was racing with the tactical implications that Vex continued to feed her through their mental connection. Nari joined them, now wearing the insignia of a temporary lieutenant thanks to her 4th year. "Status: Kim, you're assigned to my reconnaissance unit. We need your analytical capabilities to track enemy movements and identify tactical opportunities." As they moved toward their designated assembly area, Hana noticed that many of the cadets who had once mocked her now looked to her with hope and expectation. Word of her abilities had spread throughout the academy, and in this moment of crisis, her unique partnership with Vex represented one of their few advantages against overwhelming enemy forces. "What can you tell us about their fleet composition?" Nari asked as they reached the reconnaissance command post. Hana closed her eyes and linked fully with Vex's consciousness, allowing the crystal being's analytical power to process every piece of available data about the approaching enemy. "They're using a modified wedge formation," she said after a moment. "Heavy battle cruisers in the center with lighter escorts spread wide to prevent flanking maneuvers. But there's something wrong with their approach vector. Wrong how? They're coming in too fast and too direct. A formation like that is designed for maximum firepower concentration, but it leaves them vulnerable to coordinated attacks from multiple directions." Nari frowned. "But we don't have forces in multiple directions. We have whatever weapons the Academy can mount and about 2,000 cadets." Hana opened her eyes and looked at the tactical display with growing understanding. "That's exactly why they're using this formation. Grix knows our defensive capabilities. He's not worried about coordinated attacks because he thinks we don't have the resources to mount them. So what does that mean for us?" Through her link with Vex, Hana could see the entire tactical situation with crystalline clarity. The enemy's overconfidence was creating opportunities that could be exploited, but only with perfect timing and coordination. "It means we have one chance to surprise them," she said slowly. "But it will require every cadet, every weapon system, and every piece of equipment on this academy to work together perfectly." As enemy ships appeared on the long-range sensors, growing larger and more threatening with each passing minute, Hana realized that their final examination had arrived ahead of schedule. Instead of simulated warfare against programmed opponents, they would face live combat against an enemy, determined to destroy everything they had worked to build. The Academy's defensive systems came online with a deep thrumming that vibrated. Through the building foundations, shield generators powered up, creating a protective barrier around the main campus. Weapon emplacements emerged from concealed positions, their targeting systems beginning to track the approaching fleet. "All units report ready status," came General Thorak's voice over the communication system. "Enemy contact in 90 minutes. Remember your training and trust in your teammates." Hana stood at the reconnaissance post with Vex glowing brightly. On her shoulder, surrounded by cadets who had become friends and allies through months of shared challenges. The girl who had once been mocked for her strange companion now found herself at the center of their desperate defense. The real test was about to begin, and this time failure would mean more than just poor grades or disappointed instructors. The survival of the Academy, and potentially the galaxy beyond it, would depend on how well they had learned the lessons of loyalty, cooperation, and trust. Outside the command center windows, the first enemy ships began appearing as bright dots against the stars, growing steadily larger as they approached their target. The battle that would define all their futures was only minutes away. Vex pulsed once with determined light, and Hana felt the crystal being's readiness flowing through their mental link. Whatever came next, they would face it together, as they always had. The girl and her companion were about to show the galaxy what they had truly learned during their time at the Academy. The first enemy ship struck the Academy's outer defenses like a hammer blow against glass. Massive battlecruisers opened fire with plasma cannons that lit up the darkness of space, their energy beams slamming into the defensive shields with enough force to shake the ground beneath the cadets' feet. In the command center, General Thorak coordinated the defense while Captain Chang directed ground operations. Around them, dozens of senior officers worked frantically at control stations, trying to manage a battle against overwhelming odds. "Shields at 60% and dropping," reported Commander Lee. "Enemy ground forces beginning orbital insertion." Through the reinforced windows, Hannah could see enemy assault shuttles streaking through the atmosphere like falling stars. Each one carried soldiers determined to capture or destroy the Academy and everyone in it. "Reconnaissance teams report enemy positions," came Nari's voice over the communication system. Hannah closed her eyes and linked completely with Vex's consciousness. Together, they expanded their awareness beyond the physical limitations of their location, processing data from sensors, communication intercepts, and tactical analysis with inhuman speed and precision. What they discovered changed everything. "Grix is here," Hannah announced suddenly, her eyes snapping open. "His personal command ship is the large battlecruiser in the center of their formation. He's coordinating the entire assault personally." General Thorak looked up from his command station. "Are you certain?" "Vex intercepted his personal communication codes," Hannah replied. "He's directing fleet movements from the bridge of the dreadnought destroyer's edge." Captain Chang joined the conversation, his scarred face grim with understanding. "If we could take out their commander, the rest of their fleet might break apart. But that ship is surrounded by escorts and protected by heavy shields." "Not necessarily," Hannah said, her mind racing as Vex continued feeding her tactical analysis. "Their formation is designed for maximum firepower, but it has a critical weakness. All their command and control runs through Grix's ship. If we can disrupt his communications while simultaneously attacking from multiple vectors." She moved to the main tactical display, with Vex blazing like a blue star on her shoulder. As she spoke, the crystal being somehow interfaced with the Academy's computer systems, highlighting enemy positions and defensive weaknesses on the holographic map. "Here," she said, pointing to specific locations in the enemy formation. "These escort ships are positioned to protect against attacks from the front and sides, but they can't cover every angle simultaneously. If cadet fighter squadrons hit them from these three directions at exactly the same time, we can create gaps in their defensive screen." "But our fighters don't have the firepower to damage a battlecruiser," Commander Lee protested. "They don't need to damage it," Hannah replied. "They just need to get close enough for Vex to interface with its computer systems. If we can reprogram their weapons to target their own escorts, the formation will collapse from within." The plan was audacious beyond belief. It required perfect timing, flawless coordination, and trust in abilities that most people still didn't fully understand. But as enemy forces continued their assault on the Academy's defenses, it might be their only chance. "Do it," General Thorak ordered. "All units, coordinate with Cadet Kim for tactical positioning." What followed was unlike anything in the history of galactic warfare. Hannah became the eyes and mind of the entire defense, her consciousness linked with Vex's processing power to create a tactical awareness that spanned the entire battle space. Through the Academy's communication system, she coordinated fighter squadrons, directed artillery strikes, and predicted enemy movements with supernatural accuracy. June led an engineering team that restored power to damaged weapon systems based on real-time intelligence about which emplacements would be most critical in the coming assault. His technical expertise, guided by Hannah's tactical insights, kept defensive systems operational under impossible conditions. Nari commanded a ground assault team that struck enemy landing zones with perfect timing, appearing exactly where they were needed most and disappearing before enemy reinforcements could respond. Her natural leadership abilities, enhanced by constant tactical updates from the Hannah-Vex partnership, turned disparate defense into strategic victory. Toon and Zero worked together as a reconnaissance team, with the Avian's aerial mobility complementing the Gorlak's ground-based strength. They provided eyes and ears across the battlefield, feeding information back to Hannah that helped her maintain perfect situational awareness. Even cadets who had once mocked Hannah now fought with absolute trust in her guidance. The girl they had dismissed as weak and strange had become the central nervous system of their desperate defense, coordinating hundreds of individual actions into a single, unified response. The turning point came when the fighter squadrons reached their attack positions around Grix's command ship. "All units in position," reported Squadron Leader Park over the communication system, awaiting final attack authorization. Hannah stood in the command center with Vex blazing brighter than anyone had ever seen, the crystal being pushing its capabilities beyond all known limits. Through their mental link, she could feel Vex reaching out across space to touch the electronic systems of the enemy dreadnought. "Now," she whispered. The attack unfolded with perfect precision. 3 fighter squadrons struck the escort ships simultaneously, their coordinated assault creating exactly the gaps in the defensive screen that Hannah had predicted. As enemy escorts turned to engage the attacking fighters, Vex's electronic influence reached the command ship's computer systems. For a brief moment, chaos reigned in the enemy formation as the dreadnought's weapons turned on its own escorts. Friendly fire tore through ships that had been protecting their commander only seconds before. The carefully coordinated formation dissolved into confusion and panic. "Direct hit on the command ship," reported a sensor operator. "Their shields are failing," but Grix was not finished. Even as his ship took damage, the warlord managed to restore partial control to his systems and began organizing a retreat. His remaining ships started pulling back from the academy, their assault broken but not completely defeated. "They're trying to escape," Captain Chang announced. "If they reach the outer system, they can regroup and attack the core worlds as planned." Hannah felt Vex pulse with determined energy. Through their link, she could sense the crystal being's analysis of the retreating enemy forces. There was still one more opportunity, one final chance to end the threat completely. "I can stop them," she said quietly. "But it will require everything Vex and I have." General Thoric looked at her with understanding and concern. "What do you need?" "Access to the Academy's main communication array. If Vex can interface with every enemy ship simultaneously, we can turn their entire fleet against itself." The risk was enormous. Attempting to control hundreds of ships at once might burn out Vex's crystalline matrix permanently, severing their mental link forever. But if Grix escaped to threaten the core worlds, billions of lives would be at stake. "Do it," Hannah said, answering the question that Vex posed silently through their mental connection. She placed her hands on the communication console as Vex's light blazed with intensity that filled the entire command center. The crystal being reached out across space with electronic tendrils that touched every enemy ship in the retreating fleet. What happened next defied all understanding of warfare and technology. One by one, enemy ships began turning their weapons on each other. Command codes were scrambled, targeting systems reprogrammed, and communication networks turned into vectors for electronic warfare that spread through the fleet like a virus. Grix's own ship, damaged but still operational, found itself under attack from vessels that had been loyal escorts only minutes before. The warlord's roars of anger and confusion could be heard over intercepted communication channels as his carefully planned invasion dissolved into complete chaos. The final explosion, when it came, lit up the entire system. Grix's command ship detonated in a cascade of secondary explosions that took out 3 nearby escorts and sent shockwaves through the remainder of his fleet, with their leader dead and their command structure completely destroyed. The surviving enemy ships scattered in all directions. No longer a coordinated threat to anyone. In the command center, Hannah collapsed to her knees as Vex's light dimmed to barely visible levels. The effort of controlling an entire fleet had pushed both of them beyond their limits, but they had succeeded in ways that would have been impossible alone. "Medical team to the command center," General Thoric called, but Hannah waved them away weakly. "We're okay," she managed to say. "Just exhausted." As rescue fleets began arriving and damage reports came in from across the academy, one truth became undeniable. The girl they had once ridiculed and her crystal companion had not just saved the Academy, they had saved the entire galaxy from conquest. In the days that followed, as the Academy began rebuilding and cadets processed what they had experienced, Hana found herself at the center of a transformation that extended far beyond military tactics. The partnership between human determination and luminous wisdom had proven that cooperation and understanding could achieve things that no individual species could accomplish alone. The mockery and dismissal were gone forever, replaced by respect, gratitude, and genuine friendship. Standing on the observation deck one evening, with Vex glowing softly on her shoulder and the stars reflecting off the crystal being's faceted surface, Hana watched reconstruction efforts continuing around the clock. Former enemies had become allies, former tormentors had become friends, and the Academy had become something stronger than it had ever been before. "Thank you," she whispered to Vex, knowing that the crystal being could feel her gratitude through their mental link. Vex pulsed once with warm light, and through their connection, Hana felt the being's contentment and determination. They had proven themselves when it mattered most, but more importantly, they had shown others what loyalty really meant. The girl and her companion had demonstrated that. Sometimes the greatest victories come not from those who mock and dismiss, but from those who choose to understand and believe in each other. The Academy would rebuild, but it would never be the same. The legend of Hana Kim and Vex had inspired a new generation of interspecies cooperation and tactical innovation. Around the galaxy, other human-alien partnerships were beginning to form. Following the example set by a small girl and her crystal friend Dot, as Vex pulsed with gentle light and the stars shone down on their rebuilt home, Hana smiled and looked toward the future. They had shown the galaxy what partnership could accomplish when based on trust, respect, and absolute loyalty. The greatest lesson of all had been learned not in classrooms or training exercises, but in the crucible of real combat where lives depended on working together. True strength came not from individual ability, but from the bonds forged between unlikely allies who chose to believe in each other when no one else would. The girl and her companion had changed everything, and the galaxy would never be the same.